Greetings. The video you are about to see offers a glimpse of how seemingly impossible social goals can be met by blending pure love and compassion with modern knowledge and by inspiring and involving a large number of people. It is the story of Sri Sathya Sai Baba, popularly known as Baba or Swami, who has repeatedly demonstrated that what appears unachievable becomes quite feasible if only we care to tap the power of the Divine Spirit or the Atma that is latent in all but seldom taken notice of. Baba was born in a poor family way back in 1926 in a hamlet called Puttaparthi, with a population then of about a couple of hundred people. At birth, he was given the name Satyanarayana Raju. Puttaparthi being too small to sustain a school of its own, young Satya had, in the early years, to trudge a long distance every day to go to the neighbouring village of Bukkapatnam to attend school. Later, Satya went with his elder brother Seshamaraju to a small town named Uravakonda to study in a school where his brother was a Telugu teacher. Responding to an inner call, Satya left school and family in 1940 to dedicate himself totally to the service of humanity. This was truly a turning point, and to mark it, Satya went to a garden near his house and led a small crowd in a simple bhajan that was full of meaning.
Manasa bhajare guru charanam Chara bhava sadara charanam Manasa bhajare guru charanam Chara bhava sadara charanam.
That was also the moment when people stopped calling him Satya or Raju, referring to him instead as Sri Sathya Sai Baba. They came to him, Baba or Swami as he was now known, drawn by his magnetic personality. But few knew anything about the mission he had set for himself. Even if they were aware, it was beyond the comprehension of most. World War II had been in progress for over a year. Hitler's forces were sweeping over Western Europe and London was being regularly bombed, even as Germany was hoping to invade England. India too was in turmoil, having been drawn into the war against its will. In fact, as soon as the war began, Gandhi met the Viceroy to convey India's opposition. However, none of this distracted Baba, since his goals were all long-term. From Uravakonda, Baba quietly returned to Puttaparthi and settled down in a tin shed which served him as an ashram for several years. In the beginning, Baba spent his time mostly in motivating those who came to him by engaging them in long spiritual sessions, usually conducted in the evenings on the sandy bed of the Chitravati river nearby. In 1950, he moved to a permanent building which subsequently became his mission headquarters, so to speak. His first priority was to draw people to the path of goodness and create within them an awareness of the sublime nature of the human spirit or the Atma in Vedantic terms. However, looking far ahead, Baba also prepared for a multidimensional approach to practical service. Thus, without much fanfare, Baba laid in 1954 the foundation stone for a small general hospital in Puttaparthi, which continued to remain a typical backward village. The hospital started functioning in 1957 and the treatment was completely free. For the locals, it was a huge leap forward because prior to this, all they had access to was a dispensary in the village of Bukkapatnam, built by the British way back in 1914 and which had few facilities. By contrast, Baba's General Hospital could take inpatients. For pregnant women in particular, there was at last a place where they could safely deliver babies. Baba's principle has always been, start small but have a long-term plan and work steadily towards it. Thus, the Puttaparthi General Hospital steadily grew in size, scope and facilities and continues to do so to this day. The crowds too have grown since this is the best free general hospital in a radius of about 100 kilometers. On 23rd November 1990, which happened to be his 65th birthday, Baba made a dramatic announcement. He told a huge audience in front of him that the construction of a super speciality hospital in Puttaparthi had just started.
కానీ ఉచితంగా బీదలను చూచి కరుణించేటువంటి వ్యక్తి కనిపించటం లేదు. కనుక పల్లెలు ఎందే ఇలాంటి పవిత్రమైన యొక్క శక్తిని అభివృద్ధి పరచాలని చెప్పి సంకల్పించుకొని 100 కోట్ల వ్యయం చేత మన ప్రశాంతి నియమనందు ఒక విధమైన వైద్యాలయం స్థాపించడానికి ప్రయత్నించాము. ఈ గుండె జబ్బు వస్తే కొన్ని లక్షలు వ్యయం చేసి అమెరికాకు వెళుతున్నారు. వీళ్ళ గతి ఏమిటి? అమెరికా వారిని చూచేటువంటి వారెవరు? పట్టణానికి వెళ్లితే కలర్ నీళ్ళైనా వాళ్ళ ముఖాన్ని కొట్టరు. అలాంటి దురవస్థలను గుర్తించి మనము ఇక్కడ ఒక పెద్ద వైద్యాలయాన్ని నిర్మించాము. బైపాస్ సర్జరీ కానీ, లేక కిడ్నీ మార్చడం కానీ, లంగ్స్ ఆపరేషన్ చేయటం కానీ, బ్రెయిన్ ఆపరేషన్ చేయటం కానీ అన్ని ఉచితంగానే. ప్రారంభోత్సవం కూడాను అప్పుడే నిర్ణయించుకున్నాం. 91 November 22 ఇది ప్రారంభోత్సవం చేస్తాం.
The intelligentsia was, however, skeptical, which was understandable. Even those involved with the construction had their own doubts. Thus, this is what the renowned British architect Keith Critchlow, responsible for the building concept, said.
Purely in worldly terms, that building of that hospital was totally miraculous. In terms of what it normally takes to do such a thing, a highly technical, very large, very complex building. Sai Baba said, come and see the site. We drove with him in his car, we looked at the site, and here was this flat piece of land with a few trees on it, and he said, in a year's time we'll have the first operation on this thing. And I said, inside my head, I said, no way that's possible.
Despite the doubts in many quarters, Baba remained determined, totally committed, and enthusiastically pushed the project ahead. Cut now to the morning of the inauguration day, 22nd November 1991, 1 year from the date of announcement. This is how the scene looked. Baba was everywhere, supervising minor details and giving last-minute instructions even as he was awaiting the guest of honor, the then Prime Minister of India, Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao. Around 9 o'clock, the Prime Minister walked in, accompanied by the senior members of the ashram. The opening ceremony was most unusual and kept very simple, with no speeches and just the lighting of a lamp. After that, Baba and the Prime Minister went to the surgical area. Inside an operation theatre there, a cardiac patient, a small boy from the neighbouring town of Anantapur, was on the operation table, already anesthetized and waiting for the surgery. Baba gave his benediction from outside the glass door, even as the knife touched the patient's skin on the dot, exactly as he had predicted a year ago. In all, 4 surgeries were performed that day by a leading cardiac surgeon of India, and all patients recovered rapidly. Truly, the hospital was a miracle, considering that Puttaparthi was still nothing but a big village at that time. Many said that Baba might have succeeded in starting the hospital, but keeping it going was a different matter. Describing it as unsustainable, they gave it no more than 6 months. But just take a look at these scenes, filmed during a visit of India's iconic Mr. Ratan Tata to the Puttaparthi Hospital in December 2009. And this is what Mr. Tata wrote in the visitor's book after his visit. Mr. Tata's observations show clearly that the skeptics who predicted that the hospital would fold up rapidly were all wrong. The question now arises, how has the hospital managed not only to survive, but also serve thousands of patients for about 19 years now, offering the best medical care absolutely free? We shall return to this question later, but meanwhile, it is worth having a brief look at the facilities available. There are excellent diagnostic facilities. Advanced treatment is offered to cardiac patients. There is a department of urology. There is also a department of orthopedics that even does hip and knee replacements. And there is a department of reconstructive surgery that takes care of many problems, including severe burn injuries. The entire hospital is networked with computers. Thus, when the doctor takes a round in the ward, he can get all the information he wants about every patient from a mobile data terminal that allows him to see X-rays and scans also. The wards are amazingly spacious. Most important of all, everything about the hospital is absolutely free. The consultation, the diagnosis, the procedures, the stay in the wards, the medicines, the food, etc. Not a cent is charged from anybody. There simply is no cash counter anywhere in the hospital, nor can any donation be paid anywhere, even if one wants to. On the contrary, there are periodic announcements on the PA system that no payment is to be made to anyone whatsoever. The Puttaparthi Super Speciality Hospital is not the only high-tech hospital that Baba has established. In 2001, he set up a second hospital, this time in Bangalore, famous the world over as the Silicon City of India. In concept and its style of functioning, the Bangalore hospital is no different from its sister hospital in Puttaparthi, its focus being exclusively on cardiology and neurology. Let us now pause and ask, how have these hospitals been doing? Have they achieved the purpose for which they were established? There are, of course, plenty of numbers relating to performance, but then statistics do not always tell the story. In terms of cash value, using hospital fees currently charged by for-profit hospitals in Bangalore, the value delivered as compassionate service to society during the latest financial year is about 300 crore rupees or 3 billion rupees. And that sure is a lot by any metric. Since Baba's hospitals are all about compassion, it is worth considering the story of one patient in order to get an idea of how these hospitals literally open up a new life and opportunity for patients drowned in pain, misery, desperation and depression. The story you are about to hear is that of Jahangir Molla, a resident of Kolkata, formerly known as Calcutta.
Till August 2007, Jahangir was a mason. Then one morning, while doing some repair work in a school, the bamboo support, which was part of a scaffolding built up for the repair work, broke, and down came Jahangir, falling on the road some 8 meters or so below. As a result of the fall, Jahangir's vertebra was fractured and he instantly became paralyzed below the waist. However, his back experienced excruciating pain. For 1 month, Jahangir's family took him all over Kolkata looking for some hospital that would treat him. Most hospitals simply refused to look at him, saying his case was too risky. One hospital was willing to consider surgery but wanted $12,000 just for the procedure. All the rest like stay, medicines, etc. was extra. Obviously, Jahangir could not afford that. That was when he heard about Baba's hospital and with the help of his brother Zakir Hussain Mullah, made the long train journey to Puttaparthi on a stretcher. In early September, he was examined, but since the case was complicated, elaborate preparation was needed. Finally, he was admitted after a few days and then operated upon by doctors Kailash Rao and Vasuki. Jahangir stayed for about 2 weeks in the hospital and was discharged. However, the story does not end here. Jahangir was asked to stay back for physiotherapy, which went on for 5 months. Yes, 5 months. And how did that work out? Well, take a look. As you can see, Jahangir has now quit his old job and taken to selling fish on a retail basis. Did you see that man cycling all over the city? Isn't that amazing? I mean, a poor man with a broken spine not only being relieved of a lifelong paralysis but also being able to get his normal life back.
Quietly and constantly, this story is being repeated in many variations in this hospital in Puttaparthi and in this hospital in Bangalore. Digressing a bit, it ought to be pointed out that in the minds of many, spirituality has little to do with daily life and all its problems. However, as has been pointed out in the accompanying book, if that was true, then Krishna would not have spent time explaining Karma Yoga to Arjuna. Satya Sai Baba's approach to dealing with the ills plaguing society today is best appreciated by recalling a powerful remark made by the distinguished American physicist, the late Professor Victor Weisskopf, who said in an address to fellow scientists, "Compassion without knowledge is ineffective, while knowledge without compassion is inhumane." Baba's hospital project shows how the benefits of modern technology can be beautifully blended with unbounded compassion to help those who would otherwise be totally helpless. This alone is enough to prove that spirituality does have a strong relevance to daily life and its numerous problems. Here are brief glimpses of other examples of such a connection. The district of Anantapur, where Puttaparthi is located, is one of the most arid regions in the country. For years, drinking water was a painful problem for the people of the district. Water was scarce, and where available, the groundwater had so much fluoride that it led to severe bone and dental disorders. In March 1995, without any prompting or specific request from anybody, Baba decided to launch a massive drinking water program that would cover nearly 1 million people living in hundreds of villages.
లోపల త్రాగడానికి కూడాను నీరు లేక చాలా అవస్థపడుతున్నారు. ఈ అనవసరంగా సముద్రంలో చేర్చేటువంటి ఈ జలం అంతా కూడాను రాయలసీమకు మళ్లించి ప్రజలందరూ కూడాను ఆంధ్ర వాళ్ళు కానీ తమిళ వాళ్ళు కానీ ఇంకా మహారాష్ట్ర అన్ని రాష్ట్రాలు కూడాను సుఖంగా ఉంటుండాలి. కనుకనే ఈ వాటర్ను రాయలసీమకు సప్లై చేసి ఈ యొక్క దుర్భిక్షాన్ని కొంతవరకును తగ్గించాలని నేను ఆశిస్తున్నాను. ఈ యొక్క రాయలసీమకు ఈ యొక్క వాటర్ సప్లై చేయటం లోపల అనేక రకమైనటువంటి ధన ఖర్చులు కూడా ఉంటున్నాయి. దానికి 1 కోటో 2 కోట్లో లేకపోతే 100 కోట్లో 200 కోట్లో నేను ఇస్తాను.
Work started immediately. Kilometers of pipes were laid, crisscrossing the district. Storage tanks of various kinds were built. River water was tapped wherever possible, and purifying plants built to make the water safe and portable. The entire project was completed in about 15 months. After operating the waterworks for over a year to ensure that it functioned properly, Baba gifted it to the people of Andhra Pradesh on Vijayadashami Day in 1997. If the Anantapur drinking water project was out of the ordinary, the project Baba did for providing drinking water to the metro city of Chennai, formerly known as Madras, is truly astonishing. Madras grew essentially from the trading post established by the British in 1639. Chennai, now a huge and bustling metro, always had a drinking water problem, depending as it did almost entirely on the rather fickle northeast monsoon. Rainwater was stored in a series of tanks, and if the monsoon failed, the city was in trouble. By way of mitigating its drinking water problem, the state of Tamil Nadu, of which Chennai is the capital, launched in 1984, in collaboration with the neighbouring state of Andhra Pradesh, a project to bring water from the river Krishna to Chennai. For Chennai, the starting point of the special canal was the Kandaleru Reservoir, some distance away from the Krishna River, and connected to it as a part of a major irrigation scheme in Andhra. From Kandaleru, this special canal had to make its way to the Pundi Reservoir near Chennai, covering a distance of about 150 kilometers, 125 of which was in Andhra. The canal was inaugurated in 1996, taking 12 years to complete. Krishna water was then released into the Kandaleru Pundi Canal, but year after year, very little of it reached the city. Reason? Poor construction of the canal. In truth, it was merely a long ditch. Meanwhile, the northeast monsoon failed 5 years in a row, and Chennai city was in serious trouble. People were desperate, depending largely on water supplied by tankers, most of them by private contractors, and at a high price. Here is how two doctors from Chennai described the prevailing situation.
We get a lot of diseases like sporadic cases of typhoid and cholera, diarrhea. What is contaminated?
About a few weeks ago, I admitted a man with chest pain. You know what brought about his chest pain? He had to carry this kodams of water up to his flat, which is on the 3rd floor. Many buildings don't have lifts up to the 3rd floor. And he had to carry this water up, and he was a hypertensive. and this too in the middle of the night because they don't know when the Tanni lorry will come. Okay, and he developed chest pain. So you see how something like water shortage can lead to even a heart attack. Financial health is devastated. Most middle class families end up spending more than 1,000 rupees a month. This is the fundamental need which has to be addressed. My husband and I also work in certain homes for destitute people. In one such home, we're getting water from the villages in tankers. One fine day, suddenly all the inmates turned blue because the water from the village areas was contaminated with nitrates, which is then the fertilizer. Nitrate contaminated water can result in a poisoning known as methemoglobinemia. The inmates all started turning blue. I got a frantic call at night. I slept the whole night in that home. Luckily, by God's grace, we were able to rush the badly affected people to some ICU in some hospitals, and they all survived. Everybody survived. There was no casualty, all recovered. But just look at that, contamination of water. So we're facing a lot of problems.
And then, Baba decided to extend help to the people of Chennai in a dramatic and most unexpected manner. Speaking during the celebrations marking the first anniversary of the Bangalore Super Speciality Hospital, Satya Sai Baba suddenly announced his decision to come to the rescue of the people of Chennai.
ఈనాడు పవిత్రమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఈ సమయం నందు నేను మరొకటి కూడా సంకల్పించుకున్నాను. మెడ్రాస్ రాష్ట్రం లోపల త్రాగడానికి నీరు లేదు. ఏదో ధనవంతులు లారీలతోనో లేక బండ్లతోనో తెప్పించుకొని త్రాగలుగుతున్నారు. ఈ బీద ప్రజలు ఏ నీటిని కొనుక్కోగలరు? ఏ రీతిగా తన ప్రాణాన్ని నిలుపుకోగలరు? కనుకనే వర్షంతో పడినటువంటి ఆ గుంతల్లో నీళ్లు త్రాగి ఆరోగ్యాన్ని పాడు చేసుకుంటున్నారు. కనుకని ఎంత నష్టమైనా సరియే, ఎంత కష్టమైనా సరియే, మెడ్రాస్ కంతా కూడాను మంచినీరు అందించాలని నేను సంకల్పించుకుంటున్నాను. ఇది తప్పక నెరవేరుతుంది, దీనికి సందేహమే లేదు. ఆ దృఢమైనటువంటి విశ్వాసాన్ని మానవుడు అభివృద్ధి పరచుకోవాలి.
Work started almost immediately, and the old canal was totally rebuilt and refurbished using modern technology. The project, executed with tight quality control, was completed within 2 years. And water was released into the new canal on 23rd November 2004, Baba's 79th birthday. Water moved swiftly along the canal and reached Pundi within 4 days. Finally, after about 7 years, water began to flow from taps in Chennai once more. Happily, Pundi has remained full ever since, thanks to the renovated canal. Baba's focus is always on those whose needs are the greatest but get the least attention. Tribals form one such group, and they are scattered all over India, particularly in hilly regions. The hills of East Godavari district are home to one such tribal group. And Baba came to know that they had great difficulty in getting drinking water. Promptly, Baba launched a special program for the tribals, clubbing it with other projects he was doing for the people of the district, as also those in West Godavari.
ఇప్పుడు మీ పశ్చిమ గోదావరికి, ఈస్ట్ గోదావరికి మేము 60 కోట్లు పెట్టి నీరిస్తున్నాము. నాకు ఎందుకంటే అన్నం లేకపోయినా కానీ ఉండవచ్చు, కానీ నీరు లేకపోతే ఉండడానికి వీలు కాదు. కాబట్టి నీరు చాలా అవసరం. ఇంత గోదావరికి ప్రక్కనే ఉంటున్నారు, తాగడానికి నీరు లేదు. ఇట్లా ఉంటుండాలి. అన్ని దగ్గర ఉండి కూడాను అనుభవించుకోవడానికి అవకాశం లేకుండా ఉంటుండాలి. మనిషి ప్రయత్నం కూడా చాలా అవసరము.
While the main projects were based on water drawn from the Godavari River, the project for the tribals was based on a small stream that flowed through the hilly region. Water was sucked from the riverbed via a collection well, taken to a pumping station and purified there. This was then distributed to many villages in that region, taking care to see that pipe laying did not involve cutting trees in the forest. Seldom have people outside reached out to these forgotten people. And so touched was this tribal woman that she donated 1 acre of her land to build this pumping and purification plant.
చాలా ఇబ్బందికరం ఉండేది నీళ్ళు తెచ్చుకోవడానికి వాగుల నుంచి తెచ్చుకోవటప్పుడు కాలు జారి పడిపోవడము బిందెలతో పాడేసుకోవడము రకరకాలుగా ఉండేది ఇప్పుడు ఏమంటే మేము ఎక్కడికి వెళ్ళకుండా బట్టలు ఉతుకోవడానికే కాళ్ళకి వెళ్తాం కానీ ఈ నీళ్ళు ఇంకా అయ్యే ఈ వాటరే తాగుతున్నాం సార్.
There is also the case of the massive Odisha floods that swept the state in September 2008. Thousands of people lost their homes, most of them very poor. The state of Odisha is endowed with rich natural resources, and there are many multinational companies operating there exploiting these resources. However, based as they all are in cities far away, few of these companies came forward to help the flood victims because they hardly felt their pain and distress. The Odisha unit of the Sri Satya Sai Seva organization, the service organization set up by Baba, promptly swung into action, but found the scale of the disaster to be massive and overwhelming. When word reached Baba that thousands of poor people had been rendered homeless, he promptly ordered the construction of new houses.
He has decided, out of his mercy and his love, that immediately a sum of rupees 10 crores will be given to the state of Orissa for construction of new houses for all those people who have lost them.
ଆମେ ତ ଜାଣିନଥିଲୁ ସାଇ ବାବା କୋଉଠି ଅଛନ୍ତି କ'ଣ ହେଇଛି ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ପହଞ୍ଚିଲାଠୁ ଜାଣିଲୁ ଯେ ଏଇଠି ଅଛନ୍ତି ବୋଲି ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ ଆମ ବିକଳ କଷ୍ଟ ଦେଖିକିରି ସାଇ ବାବା ଆମକୁ ସାହାଯ୍ୟ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଆଉ ଦଉଛନ୍ତି ଆଉ.
Work started immediately in the villages in 3 districts that were affected most. When the first batch of 400 houses were ready, the beneficiaries were taken to Puttaparthi to be blessed by Baba and receive the keys to their new homes in his presence. In all, 700 houses were built in a span of about 8 months, and all of them were promptly handed over for occupation with minimum fuss or fanfare. Way back, Baba recognized that while doing service projects was unquestionably one way of spreading his message of love, peace and universal harmony, the best strategy would be to train young people to make values a way of life. Towards this end, he established 3 colleges, starting with one for women in Anantapur in 1968. Followed by one for men in Whitefield near Bangalore in 1969. And finally, a postgraduate college for men in Puttaparthi in 1980. By 1981, the colleges, having stabilized and come of age, were fused into one unit named the Sri Satya Sai Institute for Higher Learning, that was immediately recognized and conferred deemed university status by the University Grants Commission. Education in Baba's University is completely free, the only such private university of its kind in the entire country, which now has close to about 400 universities in all, including many private universities, which, by the way, are all for profit. Baba not only established a university, but insisted on spending plenty of time with students, using the opportunity to constantly stress that the end of education must be character. By making hostel residence compulsory, Baba ensured that not only did discipline become a way of life, but also self-reliance. Most important, students are trained and encouraged to work as a team in everything they do, be it hostel work, sports, dramatics, festivals, or whatever. To make sure that students appreciate that India still lives in the villages, Baba makes students spend about 10 days every year, usually during Dasara vacation, engaged in what is called Grama Seva. In practical terms, it means visiting about 150 villages, going house to house, and distributing food and clothing to the villagers. Preparations go on throughout the night. And in the morning, the students and staff drive away in a convoy to the cluster of villages scheduled for the day. Distribution goes on in a meticulous fashion, making sure that no one is missed. After it is all over, the students and staff also eat the same food for lunch. The continuous and intense personal attention constantly given by Baba to students does leave a lasting effect. Thus, when students graduate and leave, they remember the lesson of service to the needy and regularly run as well as participate in medical camps. Here is a particularly moving shot of an alumnus serving in a leprosy camp in Nigeria. Given their commitment to integrity as well as work ethics, it is no surprise that alumni of Baba's University are quite popular with corporate employers, even though, as a matter of policy, the university does not permit campus recruitment.
A difference that I have seen in Swami's boys is that the purpose behind them coming in, money is secondary really, and we've seen this, and this is proven by the fact that the loyalty factor, the attrition rates, if we compare in the organization of Swami's boys vis-a-vis the other employees, there is a vast difference. After the boys from the Satya Sai Institute have joined us, the organization is now started looking at social initiatives just the way that the boys have been taught in Prashanti Nilayam, in the form of service in the village, Gram Seva, education. We have taken up 2 projects already, and that has been driven largely by the boys of the institute. And I must quote that the senior management in HDFC Bank, all of them have tremendous words of praises for the work done by Swami, and that is actually also by seeing the work that is being put in by the boys of the institute when they take up projects for the bank.
We now come to a question raised earlier but postponed answering, namely, how does Baba manage to do such massive projects? The short answer is using mostly the power of pure love. Since Baba never demands anything from anybody and showers his love unconditionally, it automatically inspires and motivates many to join one or the other of his various missions and serve the community in various ways. Thus it is that during the 3 decades of its existence, the Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning has had 9 vice-chancellors. Every one of them has served in a purely honorary capacity. The point is that love has a magnetism of its own, drawing out the noblest qualities within a person and motivating that person to experience happiness through service. For Baba, all his projects are but aspects of his love and examples of the duty humans always owe to society. This sense of duty has deep and Vedantic roots, and as Krishna has explained, even God in human form has to engage in duty, though it is not mandated. Thus it is that Baba always stresses the duty individuals owe to society. This bond between the individual and society is much more than a mere social contract. Rather, it is a link between the God in the individual who represents the micro and God in the macro as represented by society as a whole. When compassion becomes the core of service, all differences are forgotten, since all beings are seen as aspects of the same Atma. Thus, way back, Baba built a mosque for the Muslims of Puttaparthi, since at that time they had no place in the village where they could pray. Since then, this mosque has grown in various ways. Imbibing that spirit, students of Baba's University celebrate Ramzan along with their fellow Muslim students. Indeed, Baba's sense of universality draws people of all religions and countries in a steady stream to Puttaparthi. Thus, Christians come to celebrate Christmas, Buddhists come to celebrate the Buddha Purnima, and the Chinese come to celebrate their New Year. They come from all over the world to have darshan, sing and stage plays. In Baba's presence, all differences, ethnic, religious, racial or whatever, blur into one universal texture of love. People from other countries and cultures chant Vedas. Quietly but steadily, those committed to the principles of Baba's philosophy of universality serve the poor in other countries also, like in Malawi, Fiji, and several countries of Latin America. Dr. Michael Nobel, the great-grandnephew of Alfred Nobel, who established the famous Nobel Prize, put it neatly.
And what I find particularly attractive with Sai Baba's teaching is he doesn't care what religion you belong to. He says the very simple, almost the golden rule message, do what's good, don't do what's bad, and love everyone. And it is absolutely, in its simplicity, a wonderful message. And now this is what makes me very attractive. The world is filled with different sorts of religions that always, I find, have some sort of a drawback. But
Gandhi once said,
"In the midst of untruth, truth persists. In the midst of darkness, light persists."
Yes, truth and light can shine, provided the spirit within is awakened. That it can be even in these dark days is what this narrative seeks to highlight. One thing is clear from the scriptures, especially the Ramayana. Untruth and adharma may reign for a while and even seem unconquerable, But in the end, evil has to perish and dharma get enthroned. This is valid in all yugas. Even in the present Kali Yuga, often regarded as the most troublesome of them all, dharma can triumph, but not necessarily through the sword. Indeed, as Baba often says, love is the best way of enthroning dharma, especially because love is God and God is love.